Welcome to Folktales by Peta, where Africa's oldest stories rise again, wrapped in fresh mystery, wit, and magic. Here, the clever walk among the foolish, spirits whisper through forgotten paths, and every tale carries the heartbeat of our ancestors. Every Friday we bring you a new cinematic journey, from tricksters who twist fate with nothing but their cunning, to ghostly encounters that remind us the unseen is never far away. If you love sly mischief, ancient warnings, supernatural justice, and wisdom hidden inside shadows, then you have found your home. Settle in, open your ears. Let the story begin.
It all began that faithful day, when the riverbank was unnaturally silent. No frogs croaked. No birds called. Only the faint hiss of rising mist, curling like white fingers over the sand. When the villagers came with empty gourds, they stopped dead in their tracks, because there, at the very edge of the water, a dark figure bent over a trembling tortoise. The creature's shell pulsed with glowing markings no one had ever seen. As the figure reached again, the river wind dropped to a frightening stillness, the kind that warns even the brave to step back. For a moment, we all believed the tortoise was about to be claimed by a force older than time. And yet, against all reason, MBE opened one eye slowly, as if death itself was merely an inconvenience. And that was the first sign that this was no ordinary dawn, but a battle between a trickster and the unseen. If you're still listening, this is where the story truly begins. I was among the villagers gathered that dawn, shivering not from the cold but from the silent presence that loomed near the river. And as the tortoise blinked at us, as though asking why we stared, something tightened in my chest, the feeling that destiny had turned its gaze to our village. You see, MB Tortoise was no stranger to trouble. He was loved for his stories, feared for his cleverness, and tolerated only because his tricks often taught us more than our elders' proverbs. Yet never in all our living days had any of us seen a death mark glowing on a creature's shell. Such markings belong to ancient tales, stories whispered by firelight to scare children from wandering at night. But now it was real, pulsing faintly on MBE like a second heartbeat. What had he done? What taboo had he broken? Before all this, our village had lived under a simple but iron rule. Once the sun dipped behind the Irako trees, no one, man or animal, must fetch water from the river. It was said a wandering spirit, banished long ago, claimed any soul foolish enough to disturb the river past dusk. Most people obeyed without question. But drought changed everything. The ground cracked, wells dried, and even the birds circled the sky looking for moisture. It was during this dry and desperate period that the taboo felt more like a punishment. Villagers argued. Children cried at night. The elders prayed for rain. Still, no one dared touch the river after dark. No one except MBE. Tortoise, who loved comfort more than caution, grew irritated by thirst. If spirits wanted water, he muttered, they could fetch their own. His irritation, born of dryness and daring, set him on a path that would shake our village. For tricks often begin not with wickedness, but with impatience. That night, the moon hung low, round and bright like an eye watching from the heavens. The river glowed silver beneath it, the surface too still, as if holding its breath. MBE crawled toward it, grumbling loudly. All this fear, he scoffed, over a little water? His shell scraped softly over the sand, each step echoing like a warning. Even the insects hid as he approached. When he reached the edge, he dipped one cautious claw into the water. It felt cold, unnaturally cold for a dry season night. He leaned closer, about to drink, when a whisper rose from the depths. Not a breeze. Not a wave. A voice. Who drinks after night, drinks with me. MBE froze, his eyes widening. The river darkened as if ink was spreading from its center. Any sensible creature would have fled, but Tortoise simply cleared his throat, pretending not to hear. Old wind and empty threats, he muttered. And that was his first mistake. The water bulged upward as though something beneath it breathed. Ripples danced backward. Then, out of the swirling darkness, a figure rose, tall, pale, hollow-eyed. It was not a ghost, nor a human, nor an animal. It was something in between. A river spirit cast out long ago, now hungry for a life to balance a broken taboo. The spirit stared at MBE with eyes like wet stones. You heard me, it whispered. You broke the silence of my night. A life must be taken. MBE bowed respectfully, too respectfully. Great Spirit, he said smoothly, surely my small body cannot satisfy your greatness. Allow me to fetch something bigger. His voice trembled, but his trickster smile remained. The spirit tilted its head as if tasting his intentions. You think I hunger for size, it murmured. But I hunger for what is forbidden. Then it lifted a hand toward MBE's shell. A pale energy flowed from the spirit's hand, branding MBE's shell with a symbol shaped like a twisting river current. The tortoise screamed, not from pain, but from the cold sinking into his bones. When the glow faded, the spirit whispered, at dawn, the one who feeds on endings will come for you. Death? MBE croaked. The spirit nodded slowly. Death answers only when the river calls. And then it vanished, not fading, but collapsing into droplets that sank silently into the water. Terrified now, MBE scrambled away from the river, cursing himself. No trick had worked. No clever escape. And worst of all, he knew the stories. None had ever escaped the death mark. None. But he was Tortoise, the one who survived by mind, not by muscle. And he refused to give up. By morning, MBE's foolish adventure had become the only topic in the village. Children pointed at the glowing mark. Women whispered prayers. Men refused to stand too close. Even the elders, who usually stayed calm, exchanged fearful glances. The death mark pulsed faintly like a heartbeat. No one had seen such a thing outside of ancient scrolls. MBE, trembling, tried to explain. I only wanted water, he said weakly. You broke a sacred boundary, one elder replied. Then help me, MBE begged. But no one dared interfere with death's claim. To help the mart was to invite the shadow onto oneself. Everyone backed away slowly, leaving the tortoise in the dusty center of the village, small and alone. For once, his tricks had brought him only silence. Fearful silence. But one person watched him carefully, Mama Nwudike, the oldest healer, whose eyes had seen more seasons than any of us. Mama Nwudike called MBE into her hut. The air smelled of dried herbs and smoke. You have danced too close to the river spirits, she murmured. And now death has noticed you. Help me, MBE whispered. The old woman sighed. I cannot stop death. No one can. But I can give you a path that may twist around fate if you are clever enough to walk it. She handed him a small gourd with river sand inside. Listen carefully, she whispered. Her voice dropped to a riddle. The river took from water, only water can return what it took. MBE frowned. Water returns what it took? She did not repeat herself. Instead she tapped his shell gently. Your last trick must be your wisest, Tortoise. Pride will bury you. Humility might save you. He left her hut unsettled, the riddle echoing in his mind. MBE hid beneath the shade of a cola tree, thinking. Mama Nwudike's riddle gnawed at him. The river took from water. What does that mean? He replayed the encounter in his mind. The spirit had risen from the river. It belonged to the depths. Its power was tied to water. Only water can return what it took. Suddenly, a spark lit in his eyes. Maybe the river that gave power to the death mark could also weaken it. Maybe the spirit itself feared something about flowing water. He had outwitted men, animals, even chiefs. But this? This required more than trickery. This required understanding. He stared at the riverbank from afar, the surface glimmering under the rising sun. His heart pounded. He only had hours left. MBE gathered what small strength he had. First, he filled Mama Nwudike's gourd with river water, moving quickly before fear could paralyze him. Then he scratched strange patterns into the sand, testing how water dissolved in reshaped symbols. He was trying to understand the mark on his shell. The glowing symbol pulsed each time he got close to the river, almost alive. "Ah," he muttered, "so you fear your own birthplace." But it wasn't enough. He needed death to touch the river. And that would require a trick bold enough to fool a being older than time. By sunset, MBE felt the air shift an unnatural chill. The birds fled to the forest. The crickets fell silent. A presence older than fear crept through the village paths. Death did not walk like a human. It flowed like shadow spilling across the ground. When it appeared at the riverbank, the water stilled, bowing to it. The shape it carried shifted, sometimes wide like a cloak, sometimes narrow like a spear. Its voice was not loud, but it vibrated through the trees. "Tortoise," it whispered. MBE crawled forward, trembling but determined. "I am here." Death examined him as one would inspect a trapped animal. "The mark binds you. There is no escape." MBE swallowed. "Before you take me, Great One, let me follow tradition. Clean my shell. Let me face the end without the river's stain." Death paused. Tradition, even for spirits, held power. "You wish to meet me clean?" "Yes," MBE whispered. A long silence followed. Then Death nodded slowly. Death extended a hand, dark, elongated, dripping with cold shadow, and dipped its long fingers into the river. The water reacted instantly, shuddering like a living thing touched by fire. A deep rumble echoed beneath the surface. MBE's heart pounded. This was the moment Mama Nwudike's riddle had spoken of. Death's form flickered. A crack ran through its shadowy arm. The river roared louder, swirling around its hand. Still, Death ignored it. It reached toward MBE's shell, intending to wipe the mark. But the second the river-touched hand neared the glowing symbol, the mark sparked violently. A blinding flash burst across the riverbank. Death staggered backward, its arm dissolving into mist. The river erupted in a towering column of water, rising like a serpent. It wrapped around Death, pulling at its shadowy form, dragging it toward the water's heart. Death hissed, a sound like cracking bones. "You dare." The river did not allow the sentence to finish. Water splashed in glowing arcs, striking the death mark on MBE's shell until it sputtered and dimmed. MBE ducked into his shell, trembling as the world vibrated around him. He felt the death mark breaking, weakening, dissolving. Death clawed at the sand, but every movement was slower, heavier. Because Death, for all its power, could not fully cross flowing water. And now it was being pulled into it. As the river dragged it deeper, Death fixed its fading eyes on MBE. "You have delayed what belongs to all," it growled. "Clever creature, you have stretched your time. But you have not escaped me." The ground shook as its form shattered into streams of black mist swallowed by the water. Silence fell instantly. Then the river calmed, so abruptly it felt unnatural. MBE peeked from his shell, panting. The death mark on his back was gone. not dim, not cracked, completely erased. He had done it. He had outwitted death itself. But the warning echoed in his mind, chilling him deeper than any river wind ever could. Death forgets no one. Not even tricksters. Before long, villagers emerged from their huts, drawn by the strange roar of the river. When they saw Mbe alive, they gasped. Children hid behind their mothers. Warriors stepped back instinctively. The elders approached cautiously, eyes wide with disbelief. No creature had ever survived the death mark. What happened here? Someone whispered. Mbe looked at his reflection in the water. His shell was clean, as if nothing had ever touched it. I met death, he said softly. And lived. The murmurs deepened. How? What did he do? What did he say? But Mbe only bowed his head. I was foolish, he murmured. And I learned. His voice held none of his old boasting. That alone scared the villagers more than anything. The 7 village elders gathered around Mbe in a tight circle. Their faces were grave. Tortoise, the oldest, began, no one returns from death's claim. I did not return, Mbe replied. I crawled around it. The elders exchanged uneasy glances. You have brought danger to us, another said. Spirits do not take defiance lightly. Mbe bowed again, genuinely this time. I accept the burden. I broke the taboo. I alone will face what comes. The elders were silent, studying him. Then, to everyone's shock, the oldest elder smiled faintly. Wisdom has found you at last, Mbe. He turned to the villagers. Let this be remembered, humility saves even when cunning fails. The villagers nodded slowly, absorbing the lesson. At dusk, Mama Nwudike visited the riverbank alone. She knew something deeper had happened. Kneeling, she pressed her palm to the water. It pulsed with new energy, calmer and clearer than before. Mbe's survival, she murmured, has cleansed something older than our village. The river spirit, weakened by the interaction with death, whispered faintly from below. Balance, restored. So it was not just a trick. Not just luck. The river itself had needed the confrontation. Mama Nwudike nodded slowly. Even rivers must shed old shadows, she whispered. Just as tortoises must shed old pride. She rose slowly, knowing the village would need this truth. The healer gathered the villagers at the center of the compound. Listen, she announced. The river did not punish Mbe. It punished the ancient spirit that dwelled within it. The tortoise's trick freed the water from a curse older than memory. The villagers murmured in awe. So he is blessed? A child asked. No, she replied gently. He is wiser. Mbe bowed humbly again. For once, the title of Trickster did not feel like a boast, it felt like a lesson. Mama Nwudike placed her hand on his shell. Your cleverness did not save you. Your humility did. Mbe nodded slowly. He had gambled with fate, and fate had offered him a rare second chance. That night, sitting by the fire, Tortoise spoke to the children who gathered around him. His voice was calm, steady, nothing like the bragging tone he once used. I have played many tricks, he began, but the greatest trick is surviving your own foolishness. The children leaned closer. I met death, he said softly. And death told me something I will never forget: run if you want. Hide if you wish. But it is wisdom, not speed, that buys you time. He tapped his shell lightly. This shell protected me. But it was the river's truth that freed me. The flames danced on his face as he spoke. A clever tongue may start a fire, but only wisdom quenches it. The children nodded slowly, absorbing each word like water in a dry season. The next morning, the elders proclaimed a new proverb, one carved into a wooden plaque placed at the riverbank. Even death can be delayed by wisdom, but never by pride. And thus, Tortoise became not only a trickster but a guide, a reminder that cleverness without humility is a path straight to ruin. As I finish this tale under the fading glow of the fire, remember this, children of the night. The spirit world rewards the patient. The river keeps its secrets. And even the smallest creature can outthink fate if his heart bows before his mind acts. If you're still listening, join me next Friday for another tale that walks between the living and the unseen.
And that is today's tale from Folktales by Peter. A place where every story carries a lesson. Every shadow has a voice. And no journey ends without wisdom. If this story stirred your spirit, remember to like, share and subscribe, so you never miss the next Friday's adventure into the world of tricksters, spirits, and the mysteries that shape our lives. Thank you for listening. Until next week, travel safely. The night still watches.